Have you ever been curious of the senses of spiritual mystery, a almost different realm in entirety? Well, this beautifully written story may captivate you. Now, without further hesitation, let's begin. I don't particularly like myself. A book I once got in the school library suggested that I write down all the things I like about myself, the things I'm good at, and the things I consider positive qualities. The book said it would help me feel better about myself. Sitting with a blank piece of paper in front of you for an hour, struggling to think of anything to write down, doesn't make you feel any better. Eventually, I wrote I'm good at hating myself, and I left it at that. I guess I'm probably depressed and should get some kind of help. But the last time I admitted to my stepmother that I felt depressed, she sent me to a free Christian counselor who told me I needed Jesus in my life and everything would be better. I remember lying on my bed, age 14, trying to let Jesus into my heart and feeling absolutely nothing. Apparently, even Jesus doesn't like me very much. School is pretty awful. I transferred here about 3 years ago and never managed to make any friends. By the time I arrived, halfway through the school year, everyone had already formed their little cliques and social groups, leaving me to eat my lunch in the stairwell and hide in a study booth in the library. It probably doesn't help that I can't put on any weight or muscle. I'm the smallest, weakest boy in my year and everyone calls me a faggot. Because I like art, my bony hips stick out and I walk like a girl. It's hard going to school every day. The bullying doesn't really hurt all that much anymore. There isn't anything new being said that hasn't already been said 100 times by the other students. There's only so many ways you can be called a queer, a homo, a fudge packer, or a pillow biter. After a while, it just becomes ordinary background noise, a buzzing in your ears that you can't do anything about. I was made to see the school counselor because even the teachers think I'm gay and give me weird, sad looks as though I'm some sort of pathetic, pitiable creature. The thing is that I couldn't tell the counselor for sure whether or not I liked boys or girls, or both. I don't even like myself. So how in the hell could I begin to consider romantic relationships? And I knew I couldn't tell him the truth anyway. Sometimes, when I don't react to the taunts or slurs, things get physical. I don't see the point or the appeal. I just don't fight back. I learned a long time ago not to bother, so it must be pretty poor entertainment for the other boys. Usually, they just throw balls at my head when passing a football amongst themselves. I hate that worse than anything else, I think. I'll have my head buried in a book, then smack! A ball would hit me in the back of my skull, sending my brain ricocheting around inside. Hot anger will flare and boil from the point of the impact, but my small body isn't up to the physical task of taking on my aggressors. But on one particular late autumn day, when the frost and sleet had begun to set in, the school groundkeeper left the gate open to the covered swimming pool. Bored and restless, some of the boys decided to take advantage of the situation by having some fun at my expense. "Come with us," one of them said. I shouldered my bag and followed meekly. Fighting was pointless. They escorted me to the pool, then spun me around and around, counterclockwise, until I was so dizzy I could barely stand. "Now run across the pool," they told me. I'd seen other kids try this before. The surface tension of the heavy black tarp over the water was such that, if you got enough momentum, you could run across it. Staggering to the edge of the pool, I knew that even weighing next to nothing, I didn't have a chance in my disorientated state. As my foot connected with the tarp, I knew I was going under immediately. I had landed too close to the edge of the black, synthetic weave enveloping my foot, dragging me down. The howling laughter vanished almost immediately as my head went under, into a dark, icy world, shocking my senses and leaving me gasping involuntarily. Instinct kicked in though, and I battled to free my leg from the tarp, twisting and thrashing in the water. Then, I was suddenly and blessedly free, my head breaking the surface and my hand catching the concrete side of the pool. Eerie quiet surrounded me as I dragged my sobbing body onto the blue tiles. The bullies were gone. Drenched, and without a change of dry clothes, I skirted around the back of the pool fence, then pushed through a gap in the microcarpa hedge, and ran the length of the back sports fields. The street seemed weirdly quiet and empty of cars. Cutting through the park near the school was the fastest way home, so I ran, shivering from the damp, down the tree-shrouded alley that led down to the park. When I emerged from the tunnel of oaks and willows, the sounds of laughter, clinking glassware, and music greeted me. Someone was having a party in the park. I gawked, teeth chattering and hair dripping, at the scene before me. 2 pavilions had been set up, and a wooden gazebo stood under one of the park's willow trees. Colorful umbrellas shaded tables from the sun that had now broken through the clouds, and expensive food and drinks were spread across lace-edged tablecloths. But the people had my full attention, as they were all utterly beautiful, long-limbed and graceful. They all possessed a refinement of appearance that stole my breath. And dressed in formal outfits of neatly tailored fabrics, they shone with a confidence of character that made me feel suddenly very small and very ugly. Dressed as I was in soaked gray shorts, gray socks, and a sodden brown cardigan. One of the elegant ladies spotted me first, running over as I stood rooted to the spot. "Oh, my child," she exclaimed, the perfect symmetry of her pale features compressed into an expression of utter compassion. The others noticed, and before I could protest, I was hustled into the midst of them, where a huge, fluffy white towel was wrapped around me, and I was given a painted bone china cup of what smelled like spiced blackcurrants. I apologized over and over for disturbing their wedding or birthday party or whatever it was, but they wouldn't have it, and finally, the dam burst, and I told them in great sucking sobs about how I had been bullied and how much I hated myself. "I don't hate you," said the first woman. "I think you are very, very brave to have put up with all of that for so long." "We all think you are brave," said one of the achingly handsome men. I stayed with them for several hours, under the sun of the late autumn afternoon. They gave me clothes to wear, and they combed my hair as the mulled wine suffused my body and mind, making me feel warm and hazy. I danced with a beautiful lady. I ate expensive, exquisite things I've never eaten before, and I laughed for the first time in a very long time. "I need to go back," I told the lady, whom the others called Tanya. "Stay," she whispered to me. "We're enjoying your company so very much. I can't. My stepmother will freak." With a smile so small and sad, she nodded. "Your clothes are in the pavilion, dry and waiting for you." All of them stood, grave and strange as I left, almost ethereal in their beauty. In truth, I did want to stay with them. I'd never in my life felt so welcome, so free to be myself. The trip back to school was a blur of tears, and by the time I climbed back through the gap in the hedge and crept back around the pool fence, I was openly weeping. My bag still sat at the bottom of the swimming pool, the waterlogged canvas still in flat. As I slipped the aluminium arm of the pool cleaner into the water to retrieve it, I had an awareness of something behind me. I turned, but not in time to see who it was properly. Just a glimpse of something made of sticks and twine. Before I was shoved back into the pool and the air shocked out of my lungs again. My stepmother ranted at me when I got home, then told me I was a weak, stupid little boy for allowing myself to get bullied into the pool. Later that night, safe in my room, I thought back to the park and the beautiful people who had been so kind to me, and I drifted into sleep thinking of their faces and voices, the faint warmth of the mulled wine, a heady memory. By the morning, a creeping dread set in. I had been absent from class all of yesterday afternoon, and someone was bound to have noticed. I'd been stupid to have spent so much time in that park. The trip to school only heightened my anxiety, and once I set foot in the classroom, I expected to be called in front of the teacher and reprimanded, but it never happened. It took me until lunch to notice what the difference was in my day. The whole school seemed muted to me, as though someone had turned the volume down. When I saw the bullies walk through the quad, I realized precisely what the subtle difference was. No one was saying anything cruel about me. The constant background hum of faggot and retard was completely absent. Ensconced in my preferred nook of the library, I opened up a new book to read. But as I did, a note fluttered out from the pages and into my lap. In spiky handwriting it read, "If you wish to see them again, today must be as yesterday." At the bottom of the note was a crude drawing of a gazebo under a willow tree. Heart hammering in my chest, I folded the note and stuffed it into my pocket. The trip to the park through the hedge was a short one, fueled by adrenaline. But no one was there. The park stood empty and sullen under the gray autumn sky. Unfolding the piece of paper, I read it again, studying the words. Today must be as yesterday. When I finally stood in front of the swimming pool, I felt like an idiot, but I spun around until I was dizzy, then stepped in. As I sank into the frigid water, I saw for an instant a flash of something again. Something made of sticks, twine, straw, and feathers. Then I kicked for the surface and pulled myself out. It was gone. As soon as I reached the end of the avenue of trees, Tanya and the others ran to greet me. I was out of my wet clothes and laughing with them, oblivious to everything else. Wine and exotic food warmed me, and I felt stronger, taller, and more myself. "We were hoping you would return," she told me. "So few ever come back." I didn't ask her what she meant. I didn't want to ruin the happiness that had so unexpectedly arrived in my life. Time ceased to have meaning to me. I knew it was long past the time I should go home, but the late afternoon sun stayed hovering over the horizon, no matter how many dances I had, no matter how many of the partygoers I met, and no matter how much wine I drank. "I should go back," I said to Tanya, as we sat in the gazebo watching two of the others canoodle under the willow. "Do you want to go back?" "No, I want to stay here forever." "Then stay." An uneasy feeling crept through my mind, battling the haze of the spiced alcohol. The sun should have set a long time ago. It should be dark by now. Tanya's long fingers stroked my cheek, lulling me back into the swing seat of white wood. Fighting the pleasant lethargy, I sat up. "Let me go and get some of my things, then I'll be back." This time, it was waiting for me, at the edge of the swimming pool. It was shaped like a person, my height and size, but instead of bones and flesh, it was made out of sticks and woven grass, straw and twine, feathers and lime, like some kind of makeshift scarecrow or pagan effigy. As I approached, it turned on those spindly limbs of twigs and twine, staring at me from dark, blank openings in its tufted head of straw. "Do you like it there?" it whispered. Fear thrilled through me. I backed into the chain link fence. "Because I like it here." Holding out gnarled hands of sticks and feathers, it reached for me. "Don't make me go back!" Ducking past, I stumbled, slipped, and then fell headlong into the swimming pool. As I went under the water, I saw straw and wood reaching for me. Then it was gone. I didn't stop running all the way home. 9 days had passed while I had been at the party. My stepmother smiled at me when I came in the door and asked me how my day had been. When I went back to school, other children called out my name and asked if I wanted to sit with them. The teachers no longer gave me those sad, pitying smiles, and the football coach asked me if I wanted to join them after school for practice. I barely spoke to any of them, my legs jittering in my seat as I waited for lunch, waiting to go back to the pool. At the jangling ring of the bell for break, I was already halfway out of my seat, heading for the gateway between the two places. In the freezing water, I saw it again, the scarecrow child, kicking strongly for the surface. Out of the pool, I ran for the park and into the welcoming arms of Tanya. "Welcome home," she sang. How long had it been since I had come back? I don't know. It could be weeks or months. The party was without end. There was always songs and laughter, dancing and drinking. When a new visitor arrived, dripping wet and shivering, I welcomed her with all the others, and she looked upon me with awe and gratitude, as though I were just another one of the beautiful people. I was beginning to find it difficult to dance, though. The lethargy sucked at my long limbs and pulled at my pale eyelids. The malice crept into my bones. I overheard the others talking about the newcomer, about how brave she was, and I felt a surge of jealousy that they had found a new favorite. Tanya no longer had time for me, all of it spent with the new girl. The walk back to the pool was difficult, each step heavy and hard-won. Waiting at the edge was the effigy, the fetch made from sticks and straw. "I won't go back," it said. I moved to push past it, but the strong, skeletal fingers of twigs stopped me. "No!" Wrestling with it, the sharp bits of wood jabbed into me. The twine tangled in my fingers and buttons. "Let go!" I yelled. But it was so strong, and I was weak, so very, very weak. With the very last bit of my strength, I managed to spin it around, then simply fell backward, my weight dragging its fragile form down into the water. We clawed at one another in the murky pool, surrounded by the blackness of the heavy tarp. It tore at my substance and pulled the realness of my being from me, making itself less twine and straw and more skin and bone. As we tangled further into one another, memories began to slither into my brain. All the things the fetch had done in my place, while I had languished in the park. I could feel its thoughts. It knew it only had to wait until I drowned before it could win, since it did not need to breathe. So I gave into it and allowed it to peel off all my flesh. As its eyes flashed in triumph, I wrapped my fingers of wood around its now fleshy throat. Now it needed to breathe, and I did not. I left the limp body in the bottom of the pool, where it faded out of existence as it crossed over. As I walked away, my makeshift body grew realer, stronger, and more human. The problem is now, I don't know which one of us I am. Memories of both worlds crowd in my head, of the terrible world of the Fae and my miserable existence as a child. But which one of us truly escaped from that pool may not matter. When I got home, my mother called the police, screaming down the phone that a crazy old man was on her doorstep, claiming to be her son. I see them everywhere now, the fetches. There are dozens walking amongst us, taking the places of the disaffected, the bullied, the downtrodden, and the forgotten. And I understand why they don't want to go back. Because the fair folk only want us for one thing, to consume the bright sparks of our mortal lives, to fuel their beautiful party until the end of time. It seems even the most beautiful experiences can have sinister intentions. If you enjoyed and would like to hear more, feel free to subscribe. You guys stay safe out there. Until next time.